Hi everyone, this is Margaret Kanimuri, Assistant Professor and Head, Department of Biotechnology, St. Josephs College of Arts and Science for Women, Hosur. In the C content, we are going to see about proteins. Protein. These proteins are very complex substances. It is present in all the living organisms. It has a great nutritional value and it is directly involved in the chemical process essential for life. This importance of proteins were recognized by the scientist John Jacob. He was the chemist in the early year of 19th century and he is the one who coined the name protein in the year of 1938. The word protein was derived from the Greek word and it is nothing but holding the first place. These proteins are species specific. It is varies from one species to another species. The protein molecules are very large molecules compared with the sugars or salt, and it is made up of many amino acids. Many amino acids join together to form a long chains. These amino acids are arranged in the protein molecules in a form of beads. More than 100 amino acids are occurs in nature, particularly in plants, and among these 100 amino acids, only 20 types of amino acids are commonly found in most of the proteins. The protein molecules, the alpha amino acids are linked together by means of the peptide bonds. The peptide bonds are formed between of this carboxylic group and amino group of the neighbor amino acids. What will the proteins do? These proteins perform a wide range of biological functions. They are included as they will access the enzymes. The enzymes are very important for performing all the biological reactions. This carrier proteins, it will transport the molecules across the membranes. These antibodies are defend against the proteins. Structural proteins, it will support the cells and tissues. Hormones, it will transmit the informations, and transport proteins. Examples for this transport proteins are hemoglobin. We know very well this hemoglobin is acts as a carrier of oxygen in our blood, and contracted proteins, it is very important for the muscle contraction. Classification of proteins. The classification of protein is based on the shape, nature of molecules on the basis of the shape. Fibrous proteins. The fibrous proteins are otherwise called the sclerose proteins. We can find these proteins in animals. They are insoluble in water. The fibrous proteins are resistant to proteolytic enzymes and it is coiled and exists in thread-like structure. Because of that only it is called the fibrous proteins. Example for this fibrous proteins are collagen, actin and myosin, keratin in hair, claws, feathers, etc. And globular proteins, this globular proteins, it is not like the fibrous proteins. They are soluble in water. They are made up of polypeptides and they are coiled about themselves to form a oval or spherical molecules. Example, albumin, insulin and hormones like oxytocins are the globular proteins. On the basis of constitutions, the proteins are classified into simple proteins and conjugated proteins. Simple proteins are these proteins are made up of only amino acids. Examples albumins, globulins, prolines, and conjugated proteins. These proteins conjugated means that is the combination. So here this conjugated proteins are combined with the characteristic of non-amino acid substance. So the non-amino acid substance are called as prosthetic groups. Here are the examples of this conjugated proteins. Nucleoproteins. Nucleoproteins is nothing but combination of proteins and the nucleic acid. Mucoproteins. Mucoproteins are nothing but combinations of proteins and carbohydrates. Glycoproteins, that is also combinations of proteins and carbohydrates. chromoproteins, combinations of proteins and colored pigments; lipoproteins, combinations of proteins and lipids; metalloproteins are nothing but these metal ions are combined with the proteins; phosphoproteins, here the phosphate group is combined with the proteins. Derived proteins. Derived protein is nothing but these proteins are formed from the already existing substance. That's why it is called the derived proteins. When the proteins are hydrolyzed by the acids, alkalis, or enzymes, the degradation products obtained from proteins that are called the derived proteins. On the basis of nature of molecules, these proteins are classified into acidic proteins and basic proteins. Acidic proteins, they exist as anions and cation, acidic amino acids, example, blood groups. Basic proteins, they exist as cations and are rich in basic amino acids. So that kind of proteins are called the basic proteins. Example, lysine and arginine. What are the functions of proteins? It is mainly involving in the structural functions. Now we know that the proteins are called as building blocks of the body. They are the essential component of various structures in the cell and tissues. We find that proteins in the outer membrane of the cells in the human body, and we can also find structural proteins in hair, skin, and muscles. It will act as a strengthen these structures, and proteins are working together. It can allow the movement within the body, such as contractions of muscles and movement of food through the digestive system. They are needed for the growth, development, healing, and repair of tissues. Protective functions. The proteins are the main constituents of the antibodies that will protect our body against the antigens and pathogens, so that it will preventing the infections. Hormonal regulations. These hormones are majorly composed of proteins. These hormones play a vital role in regulating the muscle mass, sex hormones, and growth and development. Enzymes. These proteins are called as biological buffers because the enzymes regulate many different biochemical reactions that are occurring in the body. Now this is the assessment time. I have given two questions. Dear viewers, kindly give the answer for these questions. Thank you for watching this video.